Welcome to this edition of the Natural Health Clinic's video broadcast. I'm Larry Allen, the founder of the Natural Health Clinic, and today we're going to be talking about freedom from fear, stress, and toxic emotions right after this, so please stay tuned. Well, certainly the time in which we're living is fraught with uncertainty. I'm sure that you would agree with that. We don't really know what's happening from one time to the next. Those who are in charge or authority say one thing one day, and literally the next day something sometimes completely opposite is said. There's so many changes that are occurring. Individuals have lost their employment. They may have lost their businesses. You don't know if your children are going back to school one day or the next. There's just so many things that are changing that people are finding that alone, because most find change stressful, they're finding that alone, not even to mention the other things that are causing the stress and overwhelm as well. And then as they project out into the future, as far as what the future may hold, that only continues to create, for many, feelings of fear and anxiety. So what can we do in order to really help with dealing with these types of emotions and really help to navigate ourselves throughout these new waters, so to speak? Well, there's many different things that could be done. There's different kinds of therapy. You could go to, traditional counseling or, psychoanalysis and go to a physician in order to get antidepressants. And there may be times in which those things are needed and even necessary. But more likely than not, there are certain steps that we can take, very simple steps actually, most of them free, if not all of them, that will go a long ways towards helping us deal with these feelings of fear, stress, and anxiety. So the first thing that we want to do is very simple. And I'm sure you've heard it before. And, we give it a lot of lip service and we might kind of laugh because it's very true. But I don't know how many people actually practice it. But it's very simple. And that is to simply turn off your television. To not watch the news, and really to maybe give yourself a break from television completely. But it doesn't only stop there. It's also, perhaps you need to consider doing as well a social media fast. Like you do a fast from food, well, you could also implement a social media fast as well. That step alone can do more than just about anything else that I'm going to give you as far as tips and ways in order to help remove fear and stress from your life. Because these things are designed, they are created in order to not only enable the fear, but continue to perpetuate it as much as possible at ever higher and higher levels. So don't allow that to be a component in your life that is causing stress and fear. So turn it off. Turn off the television, turn off social media, and even if you have friends or maybe even family members that are constantly negative and fearful in what they're talking, as much as you can and as much as reasonable, limit your exposure to those things as well. Now, before I continue, I would really like to ask for your help. So in social media, because they are changing so many things now, basically it's an ultra level of censorship. A lot of times they are closing down different sites, different pages, different accounts for anything that goes against, now they're calling it scientific consensus. Scientific consensus. So that means basically this whole group, what we think. It doesn't mean it's proven, it doesn't mean it's scientific, it doesn't mean it's ever shown up in studies, but the scientific consensus is blah, blah, blah. And if whatever you are producing and spreading and promoting doesn't fit that scientific consensus, well, not only may that piece of information that could be very vital to someone not get spread, but you could also be closed down as far as your account as well. So In order to avoid that, and in order to get this information to as many people as possible, I'm really asking for your help. And that can be as simple as just liking this video, and I would really appreciate if you're willing to share it with your friends and family as well. So just do that now as I continue on with the second step. So the next one is something that you've heard many times before, but again, I'm not sure how many people really take it to heart and do it. So, all of these things that I'm sharing with you today, they work. They are inexpensive and they are powerful, but they will have no effect whatsoever if you just don't, if you don't get out and do it. You have to do these things. You have to just not turn on that remote to the television, just not go to the social media sites, etc., etc. The next thing is nature. Nature, nature, nature. And as people become more and more isolated from their own families even, if you have elderly family members in a nursing home, it may now have been weeks, if not months, since you have really been able to visit with them, and that not only obviously affects them, but it can also affect you as well. There's true isolation going on. I was just thinking the other day of how many people decried the fact that over the last 15 or 20 years, as mobile phones especially became more and more popular, that really started isolating everyone. Because they would always have their attention on their phone, what they're looking at, their texts, the social media, whatever it may be. You could have an entire family sitting down at a restaurant table, which even that doesn't even hardly happen anymore, but sitting down at a restaurant table, and instead of having discussions with each other and exchange of communication and thoughts and ideas and experiences of the day or whatever the case may be, just socializing, enjoying each other's company, they have their face in that phone, and they may even be texting each other from across the table. It's just ridiculous. Well, that's so old school, right? I mean, that's what happened in the past, like 6 months ago. Now, there's literal, physical, of course they call it social isolation, right? Social distancing, staying at home, not even coming out of your house except for essential services or business, whatever the case may be. It is true physical and therefore mental and emotional isolation. So this is becoming a real serious problem, and a good way to combat that is to just go outside in nature. With your bare feet, in the grass, in the dirt, just allowing the earth to take out those negative ions, recharging your body just like a battery, and that in itself can help your nervous system go into what's called parasympathetic dominance, which goes a long way towards relaxing your body, relaxing your mind, and regenerating your body as well. So go out and enjoy nature. You don't have to do anything, just sit in a chair. Don't wear sunglasses. Don't wear a lot of clothes. The sunlight is extremely beneficial. Don't be spreading sunscreen all over your body, because those chemicals are very toxic in and of themselves. Besides, that ultraviolet light, the whole spectrum of the sunlight, is extremely beneficial to your health. Now, that being said, don't burn. Don't allow your skin to burn, because that can be very damaging to your skin, to your body. But a tan is fine, and a tan is much better than many of those sunscreens. If you wear sunglasses, well, that blocks UV, a large part of UV light absorption through the optic nerve, that affects different neurotransmitters such as serotonin, affects brain function. It even affects just your eyesight. So it's very, very important that when you're in nature that you really take advantage of it fully. Bare feet, as little clothes as is modest, and no sunglasses. So the third step, again, you've heard it before, but I ask you to make sure you start implementing these things. I'm going to harp on that with every single step, because I think it's that important. So, meditation, or just moments of silence. Meditation has been so well researched and studied. If you would like studies, just if you're kind of disbelieving for whatever, or just want the information, an excellent scientific database research site. So we're not talking about using Google. This is a site where researchers go in order to get more information about whatever it is they may be studying or researching is pubmed.gov. So pub as in publisher or publishing, pub, P-U-B, med as in medical, .gov, G-O-V. That is the database of the National Institutes of Health. It has all the studies that you can possibly imagine. And just type in meditation. It could be meditation and whatever health challenge you may be experiencing. Meditation and blood pressure or hypertension, meditation and diabetes or heart disease or whatever the case. You'll be shocked at how probably hundreds, especially like in cases of hypertension, there will be hundreds and hundreds of studies that have been done irrefutably proving the benefits of meditation at substantially lowering your blood pressure in the cases of hypertension, just as one example. So meditation, very, very important. Start small, start gradually. Don't think that you're going to be sitting there and not thinking for an hour and that if you can't, it just means you can't do it. No, the entire point of meditation is mental training. So if you're training, it means that you're trying to learn something and that you don't know how to do it necessarily, or that you're striving to do it better. That is the same thing with meditation. You have to learn how to do it. It is mental training, and you're not going to do well initially. In fact, you'll probably do horrible, all right? So set the requirement that you're giving yourself very low. Start with a couple of minutes, literally 2 minutes. Set a timer so you're not worrying about the time. And there's all kinds of different methods of meditation. My advice to you is to find one that works for you. One that works for me is to find a word or even just a number or a sound that you can repeat it verbally, audibly, but just mentally over and over and over for that entire length of time. And the idea is that you're concentrating on that, whatever it may be, and not allowing your mind to wander. Now, you will find that your mind is wandering all the time, and then once you realize your mind is wandering, just bring it back to what you're doing and continue on. And then as you become efficient at the 2 minute length of time, you can go to 5 minutes and then 8 minutes and so forth and work up to about 20 minutes. And when you can do that, and that may take a long time, so don't think that this is something that within a week, if you're doing it every day, now you're going to be able to do 20 minutes in a week. No. Maybe after 6 months, you can actually do full meditation for 20 minutes and remain in that meditative state with your mind focused on what it is for, let's say, 75% of the time. Maybe 80% if you're doing really well. Once you get to that point, just start doubling it. So not the length of time. So do it for 20 minutes, but then now you can do it twice a day. You can start with another 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes, but just do it twice a day. 20 minutes morning, 20 minutes evening, something like that. If you don't want to meditate, then similar to step number 2, or tip number 2, is to just go outside and be silent. Don't listen to music. Don't have anything that can disturb you, including other people. And just sit there and listen to silence. Sound of silence. All right, so that is also a very good method. It's similar to meditation, and it will help your body to relax. This is vodka. No, it's Pellegrino. Vodka makes the day go a lot easier. All right, so that's step number 3. Step number 4, and that is being and becoming. That's probably a better way of saying it. Becoming, because many people aren't. Mindful of your emotions. So I'm going to use a couple of examples here. These seem to be the times in which we live. There's no time for beating around the bush anymore. So I'm just going to be completely frank with you. All right? And the information that I'm giving you, it's more observation. It's observation over 20 years of practicing with all different kinds of individuals, with all different, entire spectrum of illnesses, from very minor, if any, just wanting to optimize health to, literally a few months from death. That's the spectrum of individuals that I've worked with over this last 2 decades. And I can tell you that the most ill individuals are the ones who have not been mindful of their emotions. That's just really the true case of it. Hold on one second. Let me grab this as I go over here. And so I'm going to use two examples. Every time I start speaking a lot without any breaks, my voice starts wanting to break down. That's a throat spray. I love it. It's one of my go-tos for any problems with throat or beginning to get infection and so forth. Anyway, no matter what the infection. So, the two examples I will use is of a person who is spiritually minded, more religious, not spiritual as in crystals, but more religious, and then a person who is not. So, let's begin with the individual that tends to be more religiously minded. And the good thing is that the individuals who tend to be more religiously minded, it doesn't matter what religion, it could be Christian, it could be Buddhist, or whatever, but there's a belief in God. There's typically strong value in family, and these individuals overall in many aspects do well. But the area that I've seen, especially, and probably just because I've dealt with them more, individuals who tend to be more Christian and a belief in God, is that they will use the idea of prayer and throwing their stresses upon God, their burdens upon God, which is excellent. It's a very good idea. It's a very good method or tool or whatever you want to call it. But the problem that I've seen is that when they still, after doing that, and may have done it their entire life, whatever the case may be, still after doing that, and especially after doing that, if they continue to have stress or anxiety, they do a couple of things. One, they start becoming very guilty because they feel like they shouldn't be doing that if they're actually throwing their burdens upon God. Number two, they will start suppressing their emotion because they don't want to admit that they're still feeling stressed after having done that. Either way, what's happening is that they're not being mindful of their emotions. And so what I mean by being mindful of your emotions is, number one, you have to admit that you're having whatever the emotion is. Okay? And it might be fear, it might be anger, it might be depression or anxiety or feelings of overwhelm or jealousy, or it doesn't matter what it is. But you become mindful of what that emotion actually is and what it's telling you. So then, if someone has thrown their burdens upon God, but yet they're still anxious, then what is your body, what are those emotions trying to tell you? Could it be that there are some necessary steps that still need to be taken, that you need more knowledge about something, or more skills, more planning and preparation, whatever the case may be? If you listen to what those emotions, what's behind that anxiety, if you try to discover and become insightful within your own perspective and emotional perspective, point of view, then you can learn what you may be lacking as far as what you need to be also doing, or doing something in a different way. Because just being constantly anxious is not productive. In fact, it is the opposite of production. Typically, people just become overwhelmed and don't do anything, and maybe even fall into a depression eventually. So that means that the obvious way of countering that is to become productive. And so oftentimes, that's what the body is saying in cases of anxiety, even in chronic anxiety, that there is something that you need to do to be proactive for whatever it is. Okay? So that moves us, or segues right into the second. So let's say a person isn't spiritual in any way, and they're having feelings of anxiety and overwhelm and so forth. Well, if they start listening to that, couldn't possibly what's behind that be that they are lacking in self-confidence for whatever reason, about whatever it is, or just confidence in general? And so if they discover something like that within themselves, then that helps them to see what to do to combat that. Is there planning or preparation? Is there more education, skills, knowledge that is needed in order to gain this confidence that's being needed. Maybe there's some form of training or whatever the case may be. So becoming mindful of emotion and what's really behind those emotions, instead of suppressing it, not acknowledging it, or just pretending you've thrown it somewhere and then it's got to be there, and feeling worse about it because secretly you're still having the problem. You do something. Be productive. And the first step is to become aware and allow yourself to become aware. So that's a big one there. And then the fifth tip is you need to actually consider, are you really physically healthy? Because believe me, there's a very strong connection between how healthy you are physically and how well you can cope emotionally and psychologically, which many consider the same. So if you're having a lot of problems as far as stress and anxiety, that can be indicative that you're actually having physiological issues as well. For example, one of the symptoms that a health professional will look for, as far as a natural health professional, is if a person, presents with kind of the feelings of, if when they're in bed, if in the morning they could just pull those covers right up over their head and stay there, and that would make life a whole lot easier. That symptom, that emotional feeling right there, that is a sign that that person actually has a lot of inflammation, probably chronically for a long period of time, within their gut. That's just one example of how your emotions and psychological mindset can indicate that there's physiological issues. So if you think that might be the case, then get it checked into. Come to us, come to me, I will help you figure that out. If you're not in my area, go to someone who is qualified to help you in these situations. So certainly, if you have some kind of physiological dysfunction, it doesn't mean you have to have a horrible disease, but if you're functionally have an issue like adrenal function, thyroid, it could even be cardiovascular function, not necessarily a heart disease, but that there's just inflammation within the cardiovascular system, or the heart's getting fatigued, or whatever the case may be, too much toxicity or whatever, lower kidney function, those things will generate emotional states, psychological states. And so to ward off what you're experiencing now, and I think what we're going to be experiencing in the future, because I'm of the mindset that it's probably not going to get a lot better. Maybe, they'll get a handle on this current viral situation, maybe, whatever handle is, but there's going to be another one. And there's going to be more draconian requirements and mandates and situations. And I think that this situation is going to be an ongoing situation. Have you noticed, by the way, that the way that the officials are speaking of the new normal, I hate that phrase, they're kind of distancing away from the new normal now. In fact, they're saying, hey, until there's a vaccine, there's not going to be a new normal. So what we're having here now is not even the new normal. What they're saying is that when they say they have a handle on the virus, that you're still not going to have normal life pre-2020. That's going to be the new normal now. So there's going to be always some form of abnormalcy, is that the word, from now on. That this is the way it is from now on. This is the new way of life. Okay? So to navigate through that, because I think it's only going to be ongoing more change, and who knows what the future holds, you have to know that you have the strongest body physically and physiologically that you can create, because that will only help you get through that kind of situation. I'm here to help you with that. We can do an initial consultation, find out if we can actually help you through our total health restoration or not. And if we can't, then we'll give you ideas of what you can do. Maybe it's acupuncture, or maybe some other form of therapy that you would need in order to help yourself. But the point is that we will do our very best to give you as much help as possible. All right, so Let me see if there's any questions. I'm just going to look if there's questions or not. Doesn't mean I'm going to answer them. Okay, let's see. Well, okay. Give me a minute here. Technology is always slower than I want it to be. All right, I am not seeing any questions or comments. All right, so good. If you have any later on, then, as I get notified, I'll answer them. I hope that you found this information helpful. Again, I asked for your help. If you did, even if you didn't, but especially if you did, go ahead and like it. Comment actually helps to bring it up so that it has a better reach, as they call it. And certainly sharing it is extremely helpful, and I really appreciate that if you do. So, thank you very much. Have a great afternoon. And again, I'm Leigh Bernalen, the founder of Natural Health Clinic, and thank you for watching very much.